Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James, Callum, and Alum. How you going, guys?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
All right. So tonight we're going to start off with discussing something we haven't talked about on the air. But it's affecting kind of all areas of Hollywood and the movie industry, TV industry, and just in general.
Yeah.
The writer's strike.
Well, we've talked about, we've mentioned it the last few weeks, and we've joked about it a bit, but we've never actually just done a proper sort of discussion about it, which is the Writers Guild of America, the WGA strike, which
the Film Actors Guild. Team America.
America.
F yeah.
So yeah, I thought this week we'll just sort of talk about what's going on, just for if people don't know. Obviously there's probably a lot better information out there than what I can sort of sum up. But basically it's like the last one was in the 2007-2008 writer's strike, which had a big effect on the movie and TV industry. People still talk about it now.
Some would argue that's what killed Heroes.
Yeah, I was about to mention Heroes.
Yeah, it's still people still talk about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. And now 15 years later, we've got another one because, cost of living has gone up. Things are so bad economically, especially in America, and writers are getting shafted. And when they went to the negotiating table, all the studios and all the streaming companies and media companies were just like, nah, bro. And
I think
are not.
It's not just about money. One of the things I read when I was reading about the writer's strike is there's a whole thing, it's more concerns TV than film.
Yeah.
But the writers' rooms, they'll have people sitting, essentially, there'll be, say, 10 writers on the show, whatever the number is. But then people will sit, one or two people per, like, a separate room working on something completely separate relating to the story. Not even focused on one episode. It might be an aspect of the story focused over a few episodes. But you're not having all the writers together in the same room, and they're each trying to do their own job, they're clashing.
They're trying to make writers' rooms smaller as well. So they're trying to get less people to do more work. It's the same in any industry. If you work in retail or wherever, they're cutting jobs, and then they're spreading the work thinner amongst more people, but not paying them more.
Like, what's the word where you departmentalization, right? Where it's like, that's apparently a problem too, not only in the UFO crash retrieval program, but in the writers' rooms. That's a separate issue. Yeah. So you've got all these writers writing different things they're not really allowed to talk about to other writers, and it's just kind of like very confusing, and ultimately it makes a worse product.
Yeah, well, I mean, we always complain on the show how bad a lot of this writing
kind of makes sense when none of the writers know the rest of
it's like no one's talking to anyone.
You're told to write a certain scene, and you don't know the rest of what the rest of the story is about.
That's insane.
And I think it was George R. R. Martin was complaining about it. Yeah. And he's like, look, you'll get one writer being told to write a scene in one episode, but you have no idea what the large picture is. You're just guessing. They're just like, write this scene.
That's insane.
So that's kind of just like, money aside, of like, how are you meant to do your job?
But I think it seems to be an issue where it's like you get companies like Marvel, for example, and Samuel L. Jackson was talking about stories about how they keep it so secretive, where it's like there are fake versions of the scripts being distributed to find moles, and there's drones being shot out of the sky.
Nothing leaks.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm like, you look at the writers' rooms and the compartmentalization or whatever. It's probably because people are so paranoid about IP now. Because it's like,
true,
you have to keep the content secret, so it's a surprise for the fans. It's not just making a film.
And that's the problem, Callum, is it's content.
Yeah,
it's no longer an art form. It's no longer... And all these writers who are very talented are being forced to churn out just mindless algorithm-driven drivel.
I mean, let alone... I don't know if he mentioned it on the show or not. The fact that was it Secret Wars Marvel show?
Secret
Invasions.
Yeah.
Intro is AI generated.
Yeah. And I watched the first episode and then I stopped. Because I was just like, I'm not supporting that. Disney has enough money already.
This is if this is a sign where it's going. Right? You're going to get Disney and Marvel AI generating their CG.
The whole show, and this is what we'll talk about with the writing a bit later. But yeah, so the last big one was the 2007-2008 writer's strike. Now there's this new one. The 2007-2008 one went for 100 days. As of this recording, the current writer's strike has gone for 63 days.
Yeah.
So if it lasts as long as the last one, we're like halfway through. Or potentially it might go longer.
I think the issues are possibly more larger scale than the last writer's strike.
Considering the last one,
existential
streaming
almost.
was just maybe starting to come over the horizon.
It's not just network TV, and it's not just wages
Netflix
or conditions.
wasn't even.
Now it's back AI as well.
That's the thing. Back then, Netflix wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
They were starting to discuss the internet and how they would get paid for that. But now the world's such a different place, especially the media landscape and the internet and streaming. And so there's a lot more that they're fighting for / against, depending on what it is.
So I follow one of the screenwriters who wrote the Men in Black screenplay. I follow him on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time now, like way before the writer's strike, he's been talking about how studios stiff writers constantly. And it's Hollywood. We've talked about Hollywood accounting on the show before. But the Men in Black, he says, is considered to be one of the greatest disasters in film history because it's never made a profit. One of the biggest franchises in the world made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Like don't let people lie. It made bank. But he gets these little letters in the mail that say, sorry, we still haven't made any money, so you don't get a royalty check.
Yeah.
So he got the initial payment for like the screenplay, but he doesn't receive royalties because the movie never made money, in quotation marks.
In paper,
And that was before the writer's strike, and this is something that was essentially standard practice in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah,
so you
we've
can
talked about
imagine,
it before.
It's like the original writer's strike for that 2007-2008 period, it still didn't fix the playing field for traditional film craft, if you know what I mean. So it's like you have that rubbish going on still, plus the emerging threats that streaming represents to these companies and their precious royalties. And on top of that, we also have the outright cancellation and vaulting
the tax breaks
of movies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
TV. So it's not only can you write a movie, for example, and create something, you can do all the hard work only for it to be shelved and never see the light of day. Potentially.
And then they don't have to pay you.
Correct.
Residuals,
and so it's like, it's a whole mountain of ethical concerns, and it's interesting, right? Because it's an argument about capitalism as much as it is.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why,
anything else.
It doesn't matter where you work, what industry you work in, whether it's creative or not. One, join your union, but two, like you think of a writer's strike and you think, oh well, that's a big Hollywood. There's a lot of money in Hollywood. That's a thing. I'm like, no, it's not really about that. It's about workers being mistreated and underpaid, and corporations who make bank.
Yeah. And screenwriters are at the bottom of the rung too. Yeah. These are people who don't make millions, traditionally speaking.
Yeah.
Your average screenwriter probably doesn't churn out hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
No.
Most screenwriters...
And that's part of the reason they rely on residuals, because they might write something and then not get a stable job for ages.
Exactly.
But if their show is continually on air, and they might get some money from that and they'd be able to survive.
If you work for a TV show, let's just use The Simpsons as an example. I don't know. You work for essentially half of the year at most, and then the other half of the year you've just got to sort of survive on what you get.
I think I heard the standard contract is 10 weeks.
10 weeks, okay. Yeah. So
but what the companies are trying to do is turn it into gig work, like Uber. Yeah. Like Uber doesn't have any employees. They've got like gig workers, like contract workers who they're not responsible for, that they don't have to pay, they don't have to give insurance. And so that's what these Hollywood studios and companies are trying to do, is like, instead of giving writers a job and a living wage, they're like, come in for a day, do what you can, write what you can, we'll give you a check, see you later.
Yeah.
It's like this, it's the gig economy that's happening in all industries, that they're trying to get rid of long-term stable employment.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems to me that it's an issue of the old world mentality of looking at things where it's like, no, we have to ensure that our profit margins are as big as possible.
Yeah.
And because of streaming's a thing now, I guess that when movies first came out, right, like the royalties wouldn't be paid as often or at least not as much, because the viewing scope was a lot smaller. I'm assuming.
Yeah, well,
but it's like now with streaming, they have to
And that's-
consider royalties, and the companies just flat out don't want to pay it because it's they're looking at it as a waste of investment. And it's like you have to realign your they have to realign their expectations about what constitutes fair employment.
that's the thing that because if you wrote a TV show in the 80s or 90s or a movie and it aired on TV and it played on TV, someone was keeping track of how many times, when and where it was played.
Syndication and such.
Yeah, and you'll get residuals from that. Or if someone bought the VHS or later the DVD or Blu-ray, you'll get residuals from that.
Yeah.
But now with streaming, companies like Netflix, they just don't tell you how many people are watching and when. They pretend like we can't figure that out. We can't tell you. And so they're doing it so they don't have to pay
they're
royalties.
like, this show's been renewed based on how many viewing numbers.
And they also do things where shows that they didn't originally create, like non-Netflix originals, not just Netflix, but HBO or Max. So stupid. Shows that aren't original to them, that's why they're cancelling all those. So it's like, we don't own that, so we don't have to pay. Now we cancel it, so we don't have to pay anyone extra.
Yeah.
And the shows they do create themselves, the originals, they're making it clear that it's like, we can't give you residuals because we don't know when it's being watched, how long, whatever. And it's like, that's a load of bullshit.
Yeah. Also, just take aside the fact that writing is such a weird thing to try and turn into a gig economy, because when I write something, my voice comes through.
Yeah.
So if you're getting someone to do a day's worth of work on a show, the writing will...
it'll be janky.
It'll be janky, yeah.
But here's the thing, and now, comes into the AI argument, which...
It's the end result.
Yeah, it's just like they're trying to get, not just writing, but any other industry, they're trying to get rid of workers and so that they don't have to pay anyone.
Yeah.
But they're making record profits. And so they'll do it with AI as well, where, they can get AI to generate an entire movie script or a TV show and then get a human writer in to polish it.
Yeah.
But because the writer didn't come up with the idea, you don't own that, you don't get residuals, we'll just pay you to do a bit of a punch up on it. Yeah. And the WGA negotiators went to companies like Netflix and they're like, can you just say that you won't, in writing, that you won't do that? And they're like, sorry, we can't say we won't do that.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to do that.
yeah.
And they just refuse to counter offer. And I wrote it down as well, CEO pay and their profits go up huge.
Yeah, I hate that.
But I wrote down, writers are making 23% less than they were a decade ago.
That's ridiculous.
So they're getting paid less now, but profits of studios are going high. And there are so many shows on streaming or whatever. And there was also, I listened to a podcast today, the writer was talking about, there's a problem now with media monopolies where there's only 5 big companies that own all the movie and streaming and TV studios. And so it doesn't matter where you go, you're kind of working for the same company. So they all have the same rates, they all have the same benefits. Whereas in the 80s, there are all these little TV companies and networks and whatever, and they all had to compete with each other. Yeah. So they would say, come here, we'll pay you more. And then the other side would say, no, come here, we'll pay you more. Now they're all in bed together, and they're like, when no one's going to pay you nothing, you have to come work for us because we own everything.
All it takes is one disruptor, though, too. In a situation like this, you need someone to come out and say, look, we want the talent. Obviously, we live in the real world, all right? Greed is gonna win out. So ideally, you want a privately traded company to come into the media landscape and be like, we want the best talent to make the best shows, because ultimately that's what will draw viewers in. Yeah. Right. Well, film nerds. At least. Yeah. Because when the rest of everything degrades into AI generated,
but that's kind of what's happening. We've discussed it many times before. That's kind of what's already happening. Yeah. Where mainstream movies now are just content. It's just big, loud, boring CGI garbage, which Alan will talk about in a minute. But the movies we go and pay money to see now, and that we love, and that we spend money on, is like the A24 movie. It's like that's now. It's become this. not boutique thing, but like
Alm's walking out. He doesn't talk about. He doesn't want to talk
oh
about.
no,
it
he'll come
anymore.
back and break my balls. He won't give up that opportunity. But and that's what will happen in the future is like all these things will be made by AI. But if this little no budget thing comes out that's made by humans, like people like us will be like, that's where we're going.
Yeah,
That's when we're going to
That's
see
it.
it on the big screen,
That's
even though
it.
it's shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want to see.
So ultimately, it's also up to the consumer. Vote with your wallet. Like,
Well, that's exactly it.
like we were talking before the show about the new Mission Impossible and how Tom Cruise was recently, in Sydney and talking to people. And he was saying, look, you know what? Audiences can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the audience knows what looks real
But
and what looks fake.
We've talked about
It's
it
different. Is what he said. Because he said he's not against CGI. He just says, but it feels different when it's real.
We've talked about it before, though, is that at the end of the day, we're an exception.
Yeah.
We're the movie nerds who complain about this stuff. Most people who work
Yeah,
all
love
day,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
want to eat popcorn and watch CGI explosions. And that's fine, but the level of degradation of that type of entertainment to the point where it is so flat and so boring and so fake,
Yeah.
and it's just like, what's the point of this?
Look, ultimately, we can sit here on the radio and or listen to your podcast and tell you to go see these movies, or not go see these movies.
But it's up to you.
But it's up to you.
Yeah.
Watch what you want to watch, but vote with your wallet too.
Yeah.
For instance, yes, you could wait for movies to come to streaming, or you could go to the cinema and see the new Mission Impossible or Oppenheimer or whatever else.
Or Barbie.
It's gonna be.
Yeah,
Or Barbie.
Oppenheimer, Barbie,
Barbie
double
Heimer.
feature.
Barbieheimer.
Barbieheimer.
That's what they're calling it. But
Oppen Barbie.
obviously we're very outspoken and I love the cinema, so we have
Yeah.
feelings about this.
Yeah.
Although one
But-
thing about AI that I actually do like, the AI. Have you? It's a shame Alan would be all in on this, but he's left the studio for a bit. Have you seen the AI YouTube channels where there's like SpongeBob AI live
Yeah.
streams? They're pretty funny.
Well, I talked about the AI Seinfeld and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like that stuff is like, okay, it's funny.
It's like
The-
almost like pirate radio-esque.
exactly
kind of-
like that. I
yeah.
kind of like.
Yeah.
There's a video podcast I watch on YouTube, and sometimes they'll do like a funny bit, and they'll use, I guess, an AI image to
Yeah.
like advertise something that
Yeah.
doesn't exist. I'm like, that's fine. They're just.
Yeah.
It's not, but yeah,
Yeah.
when it's taking people's jobs and when you're trying to pass it off as like,
Having merit.
yeah, like
Well,
I
Yeah.
don't know.
There's a difference between some dude. There's a difference between someone like me at home playing with AI and then a behemoth like
for
Marvel.
Didn't HBO Max recently, or Max, didn't they also just recently get rid of like the directing and writer credits off their app and then they
Yeah,
had to put
they
it back?
did.
Yeah,
and people had to whinge?
apparently that was a glitch in the
technical-
system.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but that's where we're heading. Is everything will be AI generated, and then you might have a few humans who just check in every once in a while and make sure that it's going. And all we're gonna get is just
Yeah.
flat, boring garbage, which we're already getting with humans involved.
I mean-
because corporations and these executives are just about the bottom dollar. They just churn out crap, make as much as you can, quantity over quality, get it out there. I want to get paid. Screw everything else. And that's what's happening. And this is just a sign of that. And so the WGA is fighting, just to have a living wage and to have respect and to keep writing as a career and not have
Also,
it
to
be
have their work-
completely obliterated.
To have their work actually mean something financially.
Hmm.
This idea that like I'm not a Hollywood insider. I don't know how it works. But I'm assuming that, if you're a big enough actor, for example, you'll get kickbacks for the royalty payments. The residuals.
Yeah.
Same with, do directors get residuals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Producers, yeah.
Yeah. The screenwriters deserve the same treatment.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's a collaborative medium.
Yeah.
You can't just cut, one of the most
But
important
eventually,
parts
like,
out of the equation.
One of the reasons it is important to join your union, doesn't matter what industry you work in, is because not only you fighting for your industry or your part of the industry is helping you, it'll help other industries.
Yeah.
or it'll help the same industry but different. So like a lot of actors and that are supporting the Directors Guild and the Actors Guild are supporting the writers' strike because they're like we're nothing without the writers, and if they do whatever they want to the writers, who's to say they won't come for us next? Who's to say the AI generated in the future will just replace actors completely? Right. Or we don't need a director because the computer can do it, or whatever.
Right. Maybe only top billing stars get residuals now.
Yeah, exactly. They'll start at the bottom. They'll cut until eventually they don't have to pay anyone, but they're still making bank, and no one can live off doing this creative work. It's someone tweeted like we thought in the future labor would be taken care of by robots. The robots would do everything, and so we could work on art and culture. We had no idea it was going to be the opposite. The robots would do all the art and culture and music, and we'd be working ourselves to death. And it's a scary thing that seems...
We'll be powering the robots just like in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Even though humans are very inefficient as a power source.
Even though it doesn't make sense. But like, it seems like a very possible... Whereas before it was complete science fiction, now it's a possible thing. And so it's important that we support the writer's strike, and even in Australia, where even though our writers I don't think are on strike. I was
going to say, our film industry isn't that big.
Yeah. But like, it's important because a lot of the media we consume is from America and is, basically they're the hub of most entertainment. And just supporting them is not just so we can have our movies and TV shows back that have been delayed, so you can watch Stranger Things sooner rather than later. It's not just that. It's just like support them so that
they can continue doing what they love.
And people don't continually get screwed over by greedy corporations.
Because if you let them have this, if you let the corporations have this win, well, there's that famous phrase, first they came for the whatevers.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations.
Exactly.
First they came for the screenwriters, but I didn't say anything. I'm not a screenwriter.
Because I wasn't a screenwriter,
And then they came for the second bill stars, and I'm not a second bill star.
Yeah.
And then finally they came for me, top billing star.
Yeah, no one else, there was no one left to fight, alongside.
Yeah.
So...
You missed it, Alan, but we were talking about the AI YouTube channels.
Oh,
the AI SpongeBobs? Have you seen them?
Yeah, SpongeBob's.
Have you seen Steamed Unlimited Steam, the steamed hams AI generated? I'll send you one.
You're a YouTube man. How are you not all upon this?
I've seen some AI Twitch channels that are like...
There's some AI animes.
Getting some legit, like... They're running the Twitch channel 24/7.
Yeah.
And people donating.
I've seen, how you can do super chat where if you donate like $5, this Twitch streamer will read out your comment or whatever. I've seen like AI generated anime where if you do a super chat of like, make the character do this.
I changes the prompt.
Here's $5. Like the AI will update and...
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Except for the part where I think...
It's cool and scary.
Didn't one of the AIs deny the Holocaust at one point?
I think so.
They got in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, ChatGPT just makes a whole bunch of stuff up.
Anyway. It's just lies. It's a lie.
I'm showing Alan one right now. Well, the SpongeBob one isn't live, but the Family Guy one is.
Oh, that's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Support the WGA.
So if you want to show your support, I'd recommend following Adam Conover on social media. He's a comedian who is on the committee, the negotiating committee for...
We also have to keep it balanced, all right? Let's also follow the Netflix CEO.
No. I'm just joking. Hashtag eat the rich.
Yeah.
Adam Conover used to work for College Humor, I believe.
Yeah, I think we started there. He's a stand-up comedian. He had the show Adam Ruins Everything.
Yes. He was also on the Joe Rogan Experience at one point. If you're interested in just seeing a bit of him.
As a guest.
Yes, as a guest.
Yeah. He's on the negotiating committee and for the writers' strike, and he's on the board of the WGA West. So he knows a lot. He's been very outspoken. If you follow him on social media, he can tell you more than I can. He can explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, how to support them. If you want to donate, if you have the means to donate, you can go to entertainmentcommunityfund.org and click on the donate button, and then click on support film and television workers. And
we'll
then,
link these in the socials.
Yeah, we'll link that. But if you go there, you can fund, not the writers, but like crew members and actors and other people who will be affected by the strike.
Craft services.
Exactly. Yeah, very important. So if you donate there, it's in US dollars. So whatever you put, it'll be a bit more expensive than the number you click on. So make sure you figure that out if you're in Australia. And only do it if you have the means to do so. But I've done it. I recommend you do it if you can, because it's important not only for the industry that we're all passionate about, but also
just the arts in general.
And the arts in general, but also for the worker, power to the workers, eat the rich, that kind of aspect that I think is very important for us as well. I think that's pretty much it.
I reckon.
Yeah, we'll link the stuff in the description.
Look, we might be back right after this quick break. You are back on the Tuesday review.
We made it back.
We did make it back. Sometimes we're just not sure.
Nathan's like, we might be back. Which also, considering a lot of the problems we have in the studio, I'm not surprised.
For anyone wondering, we were just watching a screenwriter fight a bear. We're sending that to Joe Rogan Experience. So
sometimes we have to sit in the centre, all right, and like enlightened centrists.
Get out of my studio.
Do some BMT.
All right.
Fence sitter.
The science isn't settled, James. Both sides are right.
Do your own research.
All right.
Focus, boys, focus.
All right, so next we're going to... Alan is going to talk about the new Transformers movie.
Yes, so a few hours ago, I think at 1:40ish, I watched Transformers Rise of the Beasts, a.k.a. Transformers Monkey Time.
Rise of the Monkeys.
Yes.
Monkey Time.
So, I'll say that, I just preface it right now because I think James obviously hates Transformers. We appreciate it for what it is. It's a good Transformers movie, but it's not a good movie overall. So, let's say if, like, a standard movie you rate out of 10, yeah. So, like, but a Transformers movie, if you get, like, an 8 out of 10, that's actually a 4 out of 10 regular movie.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, as I was watching it, I thought probably 6 out of 10 Transformers.
Yeah.
Oh,
needs more monkey. But by the end of it, I was like, no, it had enough monkey. Yeah. 7 out of 10. Transformers, of course.
So about a 3.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
A normal movie. Yeah. Which is standard. That's what you expect from a Transformers film, right? Yeah. I didn't like, because again, we're in a new era where obviously coloured and I guess what do you want to call it? But we have far more diversity in our actor choices and that sort of thing, which I think is great. But then there's the whole thing of like, oh no, the white's keeping you down as well, which that's the part where I'm like, can you just let the person succeed? Have like a nice, cool story. As a man of color, I'll say it.
Yeah, I was going to say...
I don't know where this is going.
Have you heard of the British Empire and what they did to India?
Just saying, just show the person doing good rather than showing the parts where the white man's keeping them down. Because there was 2 key scenes in the film. One was there were 2 protagonists. One was an intern at a what do you want to call it? One of those things, the archaeological museum.
Yes.
Okay.
And so she's the intern, and she figures out whether these certain items are like fake or real, and kind of guides the boss. And the boss is like, she's a white lady, of course. She's like, oh, I figured it all out, and like gives the answers. I'm like, realistically, you go to the intern, that's the boss. If the boss is actually, I guess, an actual archaeologist, they probably would be able to figure it out faster.
But that's also...
But I'm not saying it's not that nobody ever has taken credit for a smaller person's work.
Yeah, but I think it's also a movie trope of like the underdog and the scientists who no one listens to.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about it's because she's a woman or because she's a person of color, and it's just a writing cliche of like, no one listens to the young scientist who was right the whole time, and then when everything goes wrong, they have to get them to help.
The part where it's far more on the nose is the other protagonist, the male protagonist. He is also again a person of color from Latin America, I believe, and he is applying for a job, and due to his previous reference, he's not given the job because he literally abandoned his duties, military duties, for family, which I think is a huge kind of issue with, I guess, your dedication to any kind of work.
Yeah.
As a military person, if you're not there for your...
Morally, it might be the right thing to do, but if you're getting hired by another...
security firm. Yeah. It's where you literally abandon duty that is a huge red flag on your thing. And literally, the boss says, "I'm not going to risk my team for someone like you." And the guy literally goes, "What do you mean, someone like me?" And I'm like, "This had nothing to do with race. All right, it was a clear thing that you had a previous reference showing that your ineptitude caused kind of some issues here, and that's why you're not a team player.
Yeah,
you've broken rank." And that's why you're not getting the job. That's literally a person like you, somebody who won't follow instructions, not anything to do with the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just literally turned that, I was like, "Oh, you're really pushing the movie." That's where I was like, kind of
Transformers is too political now.
That was just like,
I just want to point out
just
that
be like,
Alan is a person of color.
yeah,
Continue.
just be like, you didn't get the job because of this, and that's you're obviously being he's because he said he's like, "I need a chance. Nobody's going to give me a chance."
Yeah.
And I agree with that part, but I'm just like, don't go there unnecessarily.
But not focusing on that in terms of like the story and the action. Was that part enjoyable?
Yes, it's like a standard again
for a Transformers movie.
There was obviously again silliness where Optimus Prime wants things done a certain way, but also can't literally he was like, "Tell you what, don't do this. I'll defeat the bad guy," despite previously having his ass kicked by the bad guy. And I'm like, so you're asking this person to trust you to do the thing that you can't do right now?
Yeah.
You just showed you couldn't do? I'm like, I don't know. If I was a person, I'd make that choice.
I guess, it's like when we're talking about Fast X and you guys were trying to question the logic, and I'm like, at a certain point, you just got to let it go.
You got to let it go.
And one of the reasons I don't like the Transformers movies is because I can let that go, but I don't find the CGI smashy, loud, entertaining in those movies. And I find a lot of, especially the Michael Bay directed movies, I feel a lot of them are very mean-spirited.
Which is ironic.
They are mean-spirited.
Whereas you watch
he's a
something like Fast and Furious,
dude.
which is dumb, but you're like, this is fun, everyone's having a good time, everyone loves each other, the characters are cool.
See, at least with Jurassic Park, you get dinosaurs.
Also, none of the characters,
you got robot
remember
dinosaurs in Age of Extinction. I was like,
All
that's
right,
double better.
Robo dinosaurs, that's even better.
It's ironic that the Michael Bay ones are probably the stronger ones too.
The first one is okay, I'll give you that. The second one is
but there was some
one
what was his name? Troubled actor.
Shia
LaBeouf, the Beef. He got dogs set on him during that movie.
Yeah, because Michael Bay's an insane person.
Yeah.
And also Michael Bay is one of those directors who's always made kind of dumb movies, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, up until the first Transformers, the dumb stuff was still mostly practical. The explosions were still... After the first Transformers, it just got more and more CGI, and that's why I kind of dropped off with a lot of those movies, because it's like, it's not fun to watch anymore. It's just so ugly and CGI, and none of the characters are memorable. No one remembers the characters from...
And that's why Nolan is still king, because he'll just blow up a plane.
He doesn't and you just talked about Tom Cruise before.
Blow up a plane.
You just talked about Tom Cruise before. It's like, those are the Mission Impossible and the Nolan movies, those are the ones that people like us are like, yes.
I mean, what? Now we're going to see Nolan dropping bombs or something?
We'll see. Real bombs.
He was real vague about it too, because he's like, we did large scale explosions and small scale.
I mean, I've had NDAs. We can't talk about where these bombs are dropped.
See, I'm thinking, Nolan-wise, he could probably go to like a poor African nation and be like, "We need your desert area. Don't go there for a while."
Do they? Is that there places? Are there still places where they do nuclear testing? On the surface
in the Arizona desert somewhere. They must be.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, not nukes. Probably standard bombs.
Oh, standard bombs all day, every day.
Yeah, because like in terms of
they're doing it in the ocean now.
An actual nuke they wouldn't do.
Underground.
But there's a certain level of TNT you can use that'll create a huge mushroom cloud.
Every level of nuke there's an equivalent amount of TNT.
Yeah,
so it's obviously huge amounts. But
that's what they've done with Oppenheimer. I think is like it's a huge explosion, except there's no radioactive fallout or EMP or shockwave that's gonna disrupt.
Apparently, they also did some camera trickery and did some smaller explosions, and it's gonna be really
cool.
It's gonna be
if it's practical, it's practical. We love models. We love puppets.
It's gonna be really interesting to see if we can figure out how he did some of the stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
But anyway,
cameraman's like sacrificed his life. He's like gives a thumbs up to Nolan.
He's just I salute you, sir, and then he gets blown away like Sarah Connor in that dream sequence, turned into bones, and he's just saluting. Captain, Captain, my Captain. Oh, Nolan, my Nolan. Oh, Director, my Director.
Like I said, it's relatively again Transformers film doing Transformers things. I did appreciate, Beast Wars, because as a kid, I watched Beast Wars.
Oh, I love Beast Wars, but yeah, like I said, fit in. One of the other reasons I don't like the new Transformers, I don't like the design of the robots. They're too over-designed. They're too grey and ugly. I just want those classic blocky robots.
What happened to when Optimus Prime just looked like a truck with...
When he was just a box on two legs and then he turned into a big boxy truck. Cool.
And the fact that you can do it with toys, right? Literally, they're Transformer toys.
Yeah.
Become a truck, becomes a Transformer, we'll call it humanoid mode.
Yeah.
The fact you can do that, I'm like, why can't you just do that in movies?
Yeah.
You definitely could. But
I think
there's a choice being made.
It's kind of my problem with like Star Wars and the DCEU. Like, if the first movie sets up things, then all the other movies are going to take that, and then it doesn't matter how good they are after that. It's just like, they shouldn't have kept that part of it. Yeah. So I'm hoping for a full reboot, but they're doing this weird thing where it's like set in a sort of prequel, but also side timeline. Yes, because it's like not connected.
This is set in '94.
Yeah,
which I thought was
Bumblebee was set in the '80s, which is like a prequel, but also like a separate timeline that doesn't match up to the Bay movie.
This seems like it'd probably be the.
It's a Bumblebee sequel, so it's it's like a separate.
I did appreciate again, '90s sets. '90s. They had like a bunch of people wearing the '90s and '80s tracksuits.
Okay, yeah,
they did that well. Music was all that era.
Okay, yeah,
absolutely loved it. And then cars as well. Like the Mirage is a Porsche. I forget which one. I don't think it's a 959, but it's basically a Porsche that was abandoned, and he's just sitting there like in the nice '90s police chase. The other bad guy, he was like an R33 Skyline.
Cool.
So that was some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, are you gonna get anything kind of depth of story or anything like that? No. But if you want to see a monkey jump around and do some things,
because I know you like to break my balls, but you can understand what I'm saying with Fast and Furious and Transformers, right? Like the difference.
Also,
like,
let's be
I
clear.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that you like Transformers, but for me personally,
let's also be clear. There's probably a ton less CG in Fast and Furious than there is in Transformers, just by the nature of the.
But I mean, you can understand like there's a different level of dumb.
Oh yeah.
There's Transformers dumb, which I think is a bit mean-spirited and ugly.
The whole thing is,
and
Vin Diesel loves his baby. We can't dispute. We can't dispute.
Like they're both dumb, but one's a bit more enjoyable and light and fluffy, and the other one's just like, it has a bit of Michael Bay stank on it. And I don't know how I feel about these underage girls leering camera shots and like racist robots yelling at each other, calling each other names, and pissing oil on each other, and it's just like.
Yeah,
it's a different level.
There was a bit of fun,
there's a rape joke in Transformers 4.
Yeah, there was one there.
There's one in the new one.
Oh my god!
Miranda's like stranger danger.
At least that's not a full on.
He gets taken down pretty hard. And it's like stranger danger.
It's just after I watch Transformers, I feel like I need a shower. After I watch Fast and Furious, I'm like, give me more.
I feel like this one definitely was at least toned down on, we'll call it the general depravity.
Ever since, because Michael Bay didn't do Bumblebee and he didn't do Rise of the Beast, I think Travis Knight directed both, I want to say. He at least did Bumblebee. So it's like a bit less mean-spirited, but it's still, like I said, it has that rotten foundation. It has that taint,
So, well, interesting.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't say you'd have to go to the theaters to see it unless you really do enjoy a bit of Transformers. It can be one that you can just watch on streaming. But my cousin wanted to see it, and he's 9 years old. And
it's perfect. It's perfect. Perfect age.
Yeah, he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Some of the jump scares did get him, which was weird. I'm like, jump scares in Transformers, I guess.
Every movie has to have jump scares.
I always complain that even horror movies aren't that scary anymore, but there are still people who just
also we say that, but there's been some decent ones in the last couple of years.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
in general,
there are good ones that we've talked about, but like people, I know people who genuinely think Stranger Things has really scary moments. I'm like,
our mum thinks it's a couple moments.
Yeah, so it's like for a 9-year-old to be like, Transformers, he got scared. Like, I understand.
Tell him to grow some hair on his chest.
I'm trying. There's obviously some silly quotes and stuff.
9 years old, sending you to work.
Like these
humans, set him down in front of Smile.
The monkey was like, these humans are more than meets the eye. I'm like,
and you're like, I don't get it, and you're just like, you don't have to. I get it. Speaking of scary things.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time, before Alan leaves us, I should say. Me and Alan have just finished watching the first 2 seasons of From. Which we now have to wait an undetermined amount of time because of the writer strike for season 3.
I'd rather wait the time.
I'd rather wait and have a good
write
price.
some terrible crap.
Well,
Cries in Severance.
Hopefully
Cries in Severance.
Oh, Adam Conover tweeted. He's like, "Hey, Apple, too bad your popular streaming show about a evil corporation exploiting its workers can no longer go ahead because of you exploiting your workers."
Well, this will also finally put to bed. Is Nathan I'm sorry. What's the show? Is the rehearsal scripted?
The rehearsal
We'll find out if it gets delayed.
Yeah.
Sit your cousin down to watch that. That'll scar him for life.
The rehearsal.
He won't understand it. Go on.
He would just get bored. Anyway, so From.
Yeah.
Was it what network is it on normally? Is it in America? Because in Australia it's on Stan.
Yeah.
FX or something?
No,
FX is
no.
on Disney now.
Is it?
What is it? Is it?
I looked it up the other.
AMC
It's
or-
no. It's like I looked it up the
Keep
other
getting
day.
ads for bloody Walking Dead City.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not going to watch it. Leave me alone.
It's like Walking Dead 700.
Yeah. I'm like, leave me.
Epix. It's on Epix and
Epix.
MGM Plus.
Yeah.
In America.
Which I'm like, when you said like, it's on Stan here in Australia,
Yeah.
but I'm like, it's made like an Epix made show, and I'm like, Epix, like who? That's not.
They don't do much, but they do this very
But
well.
yeah, Nathan and Alan swear by From, so I want to start watching it, but I'm glad I didn't because I'm gonna wait at least till the third one drops.
Well, luckily it got renewed for a 3rd season.
Hopefully they don't
it was
cancel
unofficially
it, yeah.
it was unofficially renewed at the start of season 2, but officially renewed this week.
Just
And we're like Mormons about it. We like,
Yeah.
have you heard the good word?
Yeah.
yeah. Just more people can get on it.
So, I know. I think we've mentioned it before, but like, say what the show's about.
So, essentially, it's about a small town somewhere in America. We assume where people drive in, but they can't leave. So when a person arrives there, driving the car or bus or whatever they come in,
They'll encounter like a tree fall on the road, blocking the
Yeah.
road. They'll turn around and then they'll end up at the town.
but when
Yeah.
you drive out of the town, it loops you back around.
yeah, they're like stuck.
And it's kind of like the central mystery about where is the town, how can they leave, and what are the monsters that come out at night that try and hunt them, and just other kinds
So
of.
is it basically at night they have to hide and bunker down, and then during the day they're like, how do we get out of this place?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. It's like the mysteries. It's kind of. I know. At least one of the executive producers was behind Lost.
Okay.
It's got that kind of feel about it, not in a negative
Which
way.
I was gonna say that has dual connotations.
Yeah, no, I guess. I mean, look.
I would like to think they've learned the lessons from Lost.
I would like to think so. With the thing is, with a mystery box show, there's always inherent risk, right? Because you can't pay it off too early in case you get renewed. But
I'm hoping that in this day and age of like premium cable shows that have 10 episodes, that they know where they're going, and that they didn't do the Lost thing where it's just like we're just making up as we go.
we
along.
hope.
Writer strike, 2008 writer strike also affected Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, go on. I'll shut up.
This show has the right balance of like mystery, kind of comedy. It has some lighter elements, but horror. Like real horror, not jump scares. Like it's the show can be nasty, man.
Yeah.
It's
Gory,
but not. The gore serves a point. It's not just violent and gory to be violent and gory.
Yeah.
Like whenever something kind of violent or gory happens in the show, the townspeople have the right kind of like the react. You know what I mean? Like the violence has.
If
weight.
someone dies, it's not just a
Yeah.
red shirt. They're all
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, that guy."
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
You
you."
see like people get torn apart and you're like, oh, well, dinner time.
Yeah,
Who's hungry?
no. So like, yes, the show is kind of gory and violent, but it has weight and it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It's not just kind of there just to. It's not Game of Thrones where there's just violence just to keep the audience occupied.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was also the whole point of that was like no one is safe.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could say that of any horror movie, and in this case, From.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things, which will survey, I'd imagine, the entire show going forward, is the monsters are there at night, and they're obviously a key part, a scary part, because if you're not secure, you die.
Yeah.
But they're not the only thing that like kind of matters.
There's other mysteries.
Yeah, it's
and-
people. It's people
Oh.
living their lives in spite of that. Some people trying to work a way out. Some people just trying to live their lives literally.
There is an element of Twin Peaksiness about the show where it's like half of the show is just
Some of the
daily life in
Some of the
this.
townspeople are
Yeah.
just like ignoring it and just be like, just
Yeah,
trying
like
to
there,
live.
there's an
Yeah.
element. The town is essentially split into two halves. You got the colony house, and you got the town. Colony house are like, look, let's just live life and get on
Smoke
with
weed
it.
every day.
we tried to leave, we couldn't, so let's just
so they
make
live,
the best of it.
They have the kind of a raw system set in place.
Everyone
And they-
shares everything.
Everyone shares everything. Everyone
They get high and drunk. They
yeah,
do.
They do. But it's kind of like they live for today, and then the town is more focused on like escape and solving the mysteries.
I guess it's like any. I mean, it's not a post-apocalyptic show, but it's like
It
'cause
has
of that
elements of
survival,
that, yeah.
survival element. It's just like there are people
It's-
who
yeah.
are just like, let's bunker down and make it work, and the other people who's like, we got to get to the
I
army
also-
base and whatever.
While me and LMD are also evangelistic about this show, I do appreciate the fact that Stephen King is as well. He raves about this show. But it's very much a Stephen King-esque storyline that he's
Yeah.
probably
It
sits
sounds
at
like
home
that,
at his
yeah.
desk being like, why didn't I write that? Wah.
He did. It was called Salem's Lot and Under the Dome.
Yeah,
Under the
yeah.
dome, yeah.
Yeah.
They smashed it together and they made From.
Yeah, that's true. But no, it's very good. And obviously, we're not going to get into spoilers. But the ending of season 2 kind of left it on a big cliffhanger with a major development, which me and Alan will discuss next time we see each other.
Aliens?
We don't know.
Question mark.
We don't know. Could be aliens.
Yeah, I want to watch it. So hopefully
It's so good. It's so good.
yeah.
But, yeah, that's all that we got from.
Yeah.
Yes.
What else? What else? We got?
Callum, do you
you
want to start talking about Final Fantasy and then we can go overtime off air?
I don't have a whole lot to say about it because I haven't finished it.
Okay,
but
well,
I
just give your
have
initial
impressions.
impressions.
So the latest entry in the long-running Final Fantasy franchise has came out on the
Last week, the week before?
22nd of June, I believe.
Oh, a couple of weeks ago.
Final
Fantasy
so
16,
the most important thing
which is like the 40th game.
yeah, probably
50, 60.
close
We
to
include mobile games.
yeah. I was gonna say there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Just because it's number 16 doesn't mean it's actually 16.
Yeah, that's it.
There's like 10 part. What is it? 10 part?
There's
one?
10 part 2. There's 3 games in the 13th.
It has
entry.
the most, yeah.
There's
most
like there's like a
confusing.
whole bunch in the 7 entry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The new one's out.
yeah. So I considered this to be the first current gen RPG because the graphics on this game are so good that your PlayStation 5 will shut down. It will overheat and shut down. So I got so concerned that I bought
It's a PS5 exclusive, right?
correct and PC down the line.
Oh, okay.
But console, yes. I got so concerned I went out and bought some new faceplates for my PlayStation that had vents on them.
Which is just bad design by Sony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that they didn't catch
The
that.
fact that they caught it.
Oh no, they knew.
But
They,
just
they
didn't
weren't
care.
form over function.
they assumed,
yeah.
I guess, that the air would funnel around the back, but it's easier for it to escape in the vents. What a say. Anyway,
Yeah.
Xbox was like, we'll make a box, damn it.
Yeah, box with a
Air
big
goes
old,
up.
big old
Yeah.
vent on the top.
Yeah, air goes up.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and it works fine.
Yeah.
Look, so it's interesting. So the guy who made it, the company who made it, I should say, is called Creative Business Unit 3. And they...
We talked about this. It sounds like
yeah.
a dystopian...
and they are also the creators of Final Fantasy XIV Online, which is the arguably... it's in the top 3 most important online games at the moment, I guess. And it's also probably the best story out of any Final Fantasy game ever made.
Now, is
14.
that the one that you like but people trashed?
No,
Okay.
that's Forspoken.
No. There was a Final Fantasy
Oh,
game.
13. Yeah, no.
13,
They're
okay.
different
That's
business.
different. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
But 14 is the online game that it's done
Yeah,
pretty
and
well.
it has the best story and characters of any Final Fantasy game ever made.
Okay.
So what happened was the guy who made that, he saved the company. So Final Fantasy XIV originally failed, and then they brought this gentleman on board to reboot it. They spent millions fixing it because the company didn't really have any other choice. They were kind of floundering.
Yeah.
So anyway, 14 became a gigantic financial success, and he saved the company. So he's like some high up executive in the company now too. He might even be board of directors. I'm not sure.
But he's also the creative...
Yeah, Yoshi P, his name is in quotation marks. So he's in charge of Creative Business Unit 3. They tapped him to make the new Final Fantasy game. So he's making like the most important entry in recent history, like the first PS5 big flagship title game that they need to succeed. He's making that at the same time as his ongoing MMO. So he's a busy boy.
Company doing so badly, still won't release anything on Xbox.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
But
it.
we need the money so bad. Everything's riding on this one product.
Here's money, but not from the whites. Not from the Americans.
Yeah,
Japanese
that's it.
only.
That's it.
Anyway, so this game got delayed and it finally came out. And it's really interesting. So the way that they write their stories in online, it's like a medieval game, fantasy based, these and thous and arts and
it's Game of Thrones-esque.
Exactly, like dragons flying everywhere, magic, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
He did the same thing with 16, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's a medieval fantasy world, but he wanted it to be a darker, more mature story than 15 was, where 15 was like this boys' road trip, and I love 15 so much.
They have a flying car.
They do have a flying car. And, there's tunes on the radio and you can drive around.
Also,
there's pit stops and it's great.
A lot of the Final Fantasy games have been like a mixture of like magic and swords
Sci-fi.
and sci-fi.
Yeah, you could argue...
Whereas this one goes like full...
Since about 6, they've been kind of
sci-fi.
toe out of sci-fi.
Yeah,
Except for 9.
But that's what I'm saying, is they kind of went to... But the originals were more fantasy,
Yeah.
Correct.
Right?
But I would argue that largely Final Fantasy is a science fiction franchise.
Yeah.
Rather than fantasy.
Yeah.
So he was like, Yoshi P was like, we're going to bring it back. All the way back to fantasy. There's no Magitech armor, which is like mechas in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
None of that. There's good old-fashioned swords, fireballs, dragons, whatever. And they did. So it's this dark, gritty, in quotation marks, because everything has to be gritty now. Fantasy story, armies at war, kingdoms going up against each other. And, it's this classic fantasy story of the lost noble who's, brought down to mercenary level and has to fight his way across the world.
Reclaim his throne.
So the story is amazing. I love the story so much. I haven't got too far into it, but I hear that it enters Kingdom Hearts level territory about midway through, which is it just goes off the rails.
Overly convoluted.
Correct. Now I'll that remains to be seen. I'll withhold my judgment there. Yeah. I was very disappointed in the game's systems. So don't get me wrong to all the cousins out there who might be saying, "How dare you? This is the best game I've ever seen." Final Fantasy to me is synonymous with RPG. This game is just not an RPG. Doesn't matter how much fantasy you dress it up as, it's not an RPG. And I understand maybe we have to redefine what RPG means if we're going to be attaching labels to it forcefully.
This 16 is more like action.
Correct.
Based.
So it's an action game. And it's designed to be an action game. They brought the Devil May Cry guys, I believe, over to do the combat system and that. And the combat system is very simple. You've got a magic ability, you got a magic button, and you got the sword button, and
just
you dodge.
Mash the attack button and throw spells and
that's fine. It's fun.
Yeah.
But it's very simple and it's not RPG like. There's a very limited customization. God of War, for example, and Spider-Man on the PlayStation have more RPG elements than Final Fantasy XVI, which is insane.
Which is crazy because traditionally Final Fantasy has been like turn-based combat where it's more strategic and you have the more RPG elements of customization and skill trees.
Even 15, for example, there was all kinds of skill trees you could grow your character in. This has none of that. It's just you can choose from a few abilities,
basic
customize
perks,
what abilities you want, but it's only a few. And it's the 13 issue as well, where you can only move really forward and back. There's very limited exploration in the world. So all the OG Final Fantasy games were essentially open world, where you had an airship and you could fly anywhere in the world and explore whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
But in this game, you could, depending on where you are in the story, like the world map will be locked off, and you can only go to a couple different locations.
Yeah.
So you can't, I don't like it personally. I think that the lure of Final Fantasy is a big open world. It's fantasy. It's exploring.
But whereas
this is on rails.
We were also talking the other night of how one of the problems with making things open world is everything.
Yeah.
It's either too empty, and games now have to look so good that it gets hard to run.
Yeah. Whereas, so it's interesting. So like I say, I don't like it. I understand why they did it though. So with Final Fantasy 15, one of the criticisms was it's big, but it's ultimately the same where you have a certain direction you have to go in. But there was enough open space and there were enough landmarks in your area that even though you were forced by the story to go in a certain direction, you could go off the beaten path and find a few interesting things. That's what I would have done with this game. Whereas it's the illusion of a big open world, not necessarily your Breath of the Wild. There's too many directions to go in that you're essentially paralyzed.
Yeah.
Whereas with this game, it looks incredible because they're only working with a relatively small space. They can make that small space look immaculate, like photorealistic. Yeah. Like not like
which is a good thing. But we were talking the other night that there are certain gameplay aspects that are lacking probably because performance-wise, and especially because it is having performance issues, they couldn't get it up.
Yeah. So like it's
where they needed it to
I
be.
haven't finished it, you know, so I think it's a great game. It's fun to play and it looks amazing. But ultimately it just doesn't feel it's not rewarding to me because it's like I just feel like I'm playing an action game.
We were talking about the other night, it was like for someone like me who's never played a Final Fantasy game and kind of maybe wants an easy entry point to the series. Yeah. This game is sort of that. It's for people who aren't really into JRPGs. Yeah. But on the other hand, we were discussing it's a problem where if you make it more accessible, that's great, but also you kind of lose the essence of what the series is and what it's about. Yeah. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword where it's like, yeah, it might be good, but it's not Final Fantasy.
Well, we'll talk about it.
When you finish it, maybe we'll talk about more.
Because like Final Fantasy's always changed. It's always changing over time. But this is a huge shift, bigger than any shift it's previously undergone, in my opinion, at least.
The kaiju giant fights look cool, but you were saying then there's a lot of quick time events.
No, bro, all you do is press R1. It's not. It looks great, but it's not fun. All I do is press circle or R1.
I'm maybe wishful thinking, but maybe this is a good basis for the next game of like taking these ideas but making them a bit less linear and on rails and so
I guess we'll hear more when he's played more, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe when we talk more about video games one week.
I think that's about all the time we've got for tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, Instagram. Not the Twitter.
Not the Twitter. Delete Twitter. We are going to delete Twitter very soon. So if you're still on there, please migrate over to our Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is our main point of communication
We won't be posting anything to the Twitter.
Yeah.
We're hoping to move over to Instagram Threads.
Yeah,
which is a Twitter clone.
Yeah.
You know, brought to you by Instagram, essentially.
Yeah. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. We still have the Facebook, so you can follow us there if you're not on Instagram.
If you follow us on Facebook, you'll also get a link to the new social media
we'll put
page
that up. Yeah.
When we go live on there. But we're finally moving away from Twitter.
Thank God, I'm so happy. And also, we'll put the link to donate to the writer's strike in the description, and if you have the means to do so, I think that would be a good thing to support.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We're back next week.
Join your union.
Adios, cousins.